So I'm now here at the Mount Holly Cemetery, and this is an interesting cemetery to look at. It's kind of a Gothic style, but there's some modern and some very old burials in it. This cemetery is on Broadway and 12th in Little Rock. As you can see, there's some interesting markers here. It's not something that you see in every cemetery. Some very old and tall trees in here. So you can actually drive in this cemetery there. Stay on this road there, but these others, like that one, there's no sign. But a lot of these say pedestrian lane only. These are very old. A lot of them have names on the steps as you go up into the family plots. And just show you some of these here. Huge, huge, tall monuments in some of these. Just kind of grab your attention with the sheer size of it. But you can see there's all kinds in here. And you'll see a lot of these as they have these little markers for, Confederate Army soldiers and stuff. Some of these are really interesting. Here's Dr. Isaac Folsom. And he has this little thing constructed here. These gates like that. A little lock on it. Every one of these rows has its own little street name or row name, as you want to call it. Like this one is Spruce. The next one up there is Locust. So each one of these has its own little name, so you can kind of find where we're going. It's going to show you these ladies right here on Spruce Lane. I guess it's a man and a lady. If we can get over to it here. Not sure how else to do this really. But you can see, look like there's something missing in these right there. They're pretty cool. These monuments are very interesting to look at. I mean, they grab your attention for sure, which I think is what they actually want. It's kind of like they're speaking to you in a different way. This has actually got a little stained glass window in it, as you can see there. And there is 8 people buried in there. You know, these families that would have visited and paid their respects to their family members are probably long gone, or at least out of the area. But the interesting thing with some of these is they're so unique and different in how they catch your eye that it attracts other visitors, people that don't know them. And that's where I believe that that's what they intended. So here you have another marker there, the Confederate States Army. You can see who he was, Major Albert Belding. Probably more one of the ordinary markers in what is otherwise a very unique cemetery. You can see a few government markers for military veterans. Sarah's up there taking pictures of these various ones in here. A lot of unique ones. Little history on the cemetery. Mount Holly Cemetery was established in 1843. As you can see, some of these little statues and monuments are just different. Wildflower Sanctuary, Mowing Limited. This is Maple Row. This is Elm Street right here. And this is going to be an interesting row, and I'll tell you why. It's kind of marked by that statue so you get your reference there. Down this way is going to be one that we're looking for. Let's see. This is not it. But I just thought I would show you that one with this gate around it. There's another with a gate around it. See if we can find him here. They're all different. Like I said, some of them are very old. It's like something that you would see in a movie on some of these. So this is the one that we're looking for. This is David Dodd, and he is the boy martyr of the Confederate States, or the boy hero of the Confederate States. And he was convicted of being a spy, and he was hung right here in Little Rock. He was captured in this area. You can actually kind of see the area where he was captured. And I believe it's a little southwest of Little Rock. I'm not sure if there's any kind of marker or anything in that specific area, but you can definitely see his grave right here, and you can see where he's buried, which is right here. Here lies the remains of David O. Dodd, born in Texas in 1846. And died January 8th, 1864. And like I said, they hung him in a gallows, and you can kind of just see they gave him the Confederate Medal of Honor presented in July of 1984. And you can see the front of this, Arkansas Boy Martyr of the Confederacy. And usually, a lot of times, not always, you will see these kind of markers like this around a child. You can see them around adults. But a lot of times, they'll be really tiny for if they're like a little infant or a baby. And so they look like little bathtubs a lot of times to me. So this one is a little bit larger. And like I said, he was a boy, but really kind of a man. You know, he's pretty much done growing for the most part. He was 17 years old when they hung him, just a few months into his 17th year. And you can see some pictures of him online. This is a picture that I showed on a little memorial that has his picture. But like I said, this is on the Elm Row. Just kind of get your reference. That is downtown Little Rock there. So it's just... So here's this one that's a little different. There's kind of a bust on it. And a lot of these that you see that are larger, like that one for instance, or this one, they could be prominent people or very well-off people, and they were able to afford something a little more than, say, these tiny ones up there. And so some of these names that you might see might be something that you could Google research real quick and find out who they were. Something might come up on some of these. Here's some different markers here. And I like how they've trimmed these holly, what I call holly bushes. I know they're holly trees, but you rarely ever see them in the shape of a tree. This is the Terry family plot. Pretty interesting. This one's got a cross on the ground, cross up high. And this,
he was killed while responding to a it says something alarm fire. I can't read it.
let's see if he says he was killed while responding to something alarm fire. It's hard to read. Pretty neat little firefighter guy up top there. See what this says? Oh, it's just a bunch of names there. It's got a pretty neat little monument there. You can see that one over there. There's an angel right there. You see that right there. And then there's a bust on that one as well. So that might be someone that's of prominence in the area. As you stand here and read the story on this, you can look up at this monument, and it's like the guy's looking right at you as you're reading the story on this Confederate soldier. So this is a family plot of this family, and you can also see that there is one that was in the War of 1812. It's hard to imagine how much history is in this cemetery. So inside this cemetery is this marker on the Civil War in Arkansas, and you can read a little history here. And the men that are here, it says at the bottom, 3 men are buried at Mount Holly, which is in this cemetery here. It's a really old magnolia tree right here. Really old. Got some interesting turns and bends in it. There's no telling how old this magnolia tree is though, because they take a while to get this large. But it's interesting to see how it's sort of shading and covering some of these markers in the cemetery. But it's so big around. I don't think I've ever seen one that large. If I have, I sure don't remember it. Let's see this one. Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of the State of Arkansas. This marker right here is pretty interesting looking. It's way up. And you actually have to go up these stairs right there to get to it. Watkins is the name. It's pretty interesting looking. This looks like a Capitol building on W. Grand, right on the corner. Last name is Lincoln. So this one right here says he was distinguished as a soldier, distinguished as a citizen, and beloved by the people of Arkansas. Tried in many positions of trust. He was ever faithful, and by capability and devotion to duty, he won the laurels on an honorable name. The 13th governor of Arkansas, 1880. And take you around to show you who he is. Last name is Churchill. Major General Thomas J. Churchill, Confederate States Army. This is right across from him, and there's a little bell up there. It says, "Ring bell for sexton. These streets were designed for carriages. Be cautious with your automobile." Kind of give you almost a full view of the cemetery here. We're probably 3/4 of the way back in this. You can see flowers throughout the grounds. Many of them are little bitty wildflowers, so they limit the mowing in certain areas because of these flowers. Lots of purple flowers over there. And this is the mausoleum right here up close. See if we can go inside and see what it's like. I don't know if it's locked or if it's open or not. It is locked. I'll give you guys a view there. Stained glass windows in there. Pretty interesting. Little stained glass right on the front. This one is interesting. It's just being marked with a rock. And this one has a rock on top of it as well. Yes, it's actually, as you see, it's a bust, and it had a head on top of it at one time, and it has broken off. This one is really a rock. This one right here is just a single grave inside of a fenced area, and they've actually placed a marker right there in 2010. It says he was chosen by his fellow legislators to carry the first Arkansas Constitution to Washington, D.C. Towards the back here, they have this little fountain, and it's called the Victorian Fountain. And I know this just because there's a little sign right there. But you can see more of these large magnolia trees here. Some pretty flowers. Pretty purple flowers growing over there. But in that house where the bell was, where you can ring the sexton, you can pick up this brochure, and you can see where many of these were Confederate State soldiers, of course, but mayors of Little Rock, and in the House of Representatives, and it even gives you a location of where they're at in the cemetery, so you can go directly to where they're at. Pretty neat little brochure there, and you can give yourself a walking tour of the cemetery. You could probably spend hours out here even if you don't know who the people are, just by looking at all the art that is on these graves out here.